You're good to
Great,
go,
thank
Cheryl.
you. Perfect. All right, welcome everyone to the Open Wallet Foundation Wallet Interoperability Special Interest Group for March 10th, 2025. Today on the agenda, we'll have just a few announcements, project updates, and then we will hear about the OpenID Federation from Giuseppe DeMarco. So thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to the presentation. We are recording this call. It'll be posted here on the meeting page later today. We are following the Linux Foundation Antitrust Policy and the Open Wallet Foundation Code of Conduct. We are now on the Monday schedule, as you all know, for the March 17th to 24th calls. This will be at 4 p.m. Central Europe time, and then switch back to 5 p.m. for Central Europe as Europe's time change. But the time will remain at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So yeah, if you haven't regenerated the calendar invitation, definitely suggest doing that. Next week, during our call on Monday, we will hear from Mirko Malik. He will present on the HSM requirement for high assurance credentials. So looking forward to that. Are there any announcements before we get started, or introductions?
Actually, I could do an announcement. I'll add this to the announcements in a bit, but we're doing an AnonCreds webinar, an AnonCreds V2 webinar coming up 2 weeks from tomorrow. So I'll put the link in there to meet up webinar that is going to cover the fact that BBS signatures are now supported, are now one of the pluggable versions, one of the pluggable signature schemes that are in AnonCreds V2. And so we'll be talking about that and other capabilities enabled with AnonCreds V2.
Great.
Anonymous credentials.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Any other announcements or introductions? All right. For project updates, Stephen, did you want to give any Akapai highlights?
Yeah, Akapai had a LTS long-term support backport of a bug, and we might have another one. We've had a request from a maintainer for another one, so there may be another one coming out. Just a couple of small things, but that are just bugs introduced at various points, and we're addressing them. So we're making sure we're backporting the ones that are relevant to long-term support versions of Akapai. So we currently have 2 LTS versions, and so we're maintaining those as per the LTS policy of Akapai. Other than that, things continue to go on. We should have a release candidate for another release probably in the next 2 weeks to cover the things that we've been working on, including the breaking changes that are coming in the next release. So looking forward to having that put out there. As always, lots of things going on, lots of activity moving forward.
Great, good to hear. Let's see, any updates on Credo, Bifold, Owl, VCX, or any other projects in space?
The only one that I'm aware of to call out on specifics, again, lots of things happening at Credo and Bifold, and Owl keeps moving forward. But the biggest one is the VCX code base has moved into the Open Wallet Foundation. So it is now in the Open Wallet GitHub organization. So that's good. Glad to have it there.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, in regard to VCX, their Discord is now live in the Open Wallet Discord. They, I believe, last week had their last meeting on the old Hyperledger number, the old Hyperledger Zoom room. They have the new meetings coming up. I will put it, Shar, you don't have to worry about it. I'll put it into the agenda in a second. I'll edit the wiki page. And we're working now on project formation stuff, getting the logo together with them, getting the briefing process together, etc. Also, I'm going out to the other projects that are in both growth and well, not Occupy's impact, but just to talk to them about coming to this meeting, presenting what they're working on, and more representation and getting folks hear a little bit more.
That'd be great. Awesome. Thanks for that update. All right, any final announcements or project updates before we jump into the rest of our meeting?
Let's go to the
All
good
right.
stuff.
Yes, with that, I will pass it over to you, Giuseppe. Thanks again for taking the time to present.
Thank you. Well, may I share my screen?
Yes.
Wow. And apologize in advance for my language level. I am aware that my English might not hear so accurate. Therefore, thank you for your patience.
Your English is great. Absolutely.
Thank you. You're so kind. Wow. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And I suppose that now the presentation is full screen, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, guys, thank you all for having invited me today. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to engage some good conversation with you. I suppose that many of you are project manager, digital identity expert, wallet architecture expert, and expert in general within the field of digital identities and critical assets. Well, I am Giuseppe De Marco. I work for the Department for Digital Transformation, one of the departments of the Presidency of the Council of the Ministry of the Italian government. I work in the field of digital identities from roughly 9 years at this part. And I can say that I have touched digital identities in many ways, starting from LDAP 500 schemas, so therefore SAML 2. I have designed the OpenID Connect implementation profile for the Italian Gov EIDs. And in that moment, 3 years ago, I have decided to use OpenID Federation, and my interpretation of the specification made me invited as one of the co-author of the OpenID Foundation specification. I work for the Italian government. It actually, I have entered in the, it is more than four years today with the Italian government. And in particular, today, we will talk about OpenID Federation wallet architecture. That's an official OpenID Foundation draft that demonstrates how to use OpenID Federation to build trust infrastructure for wallet ecosystem. We will delve, first of all, into the general principles about how OpenID Federation works and what the wallet architecture draft does. Before doing that, I want to explore with your presence the concept of trust and the differences between trust model, trust framework, infrastructure of trust. I'll try to be pretty quick. Let's say that in general, the trust model define how trust can be evaluated, and this is on high level because it is a model, and we will analyze the links between the model, the framework, and the infrastructure that represents the material implementation of the framework, and therefore about the model. To introduce the three leading trust model, I want to talk about today. Well, I would like to start from the simplest one, the direct trust. Mm, well, we can say that the simplest way to establish trust with a subject is by evaluating its trustworthiness through a direct interaction or by with it or by using proofs previously provided via some sort of out-of-band mechanisms. Therefore, this model it is called direct trust, and I can say that is similar to meeting someone on the street and deciding that interacting with them is necessary, even if might appear potentially risky. Um, in this model, trust is assessed in real time and based on the individual's behavior and feedback, and or as mentioned, using any other proof obtained in some out of band way in support of the trust evaluation process. A less risky approach that looks pretty aligned with our social patterns involves differently some sort of trusted third party. And the example I like to do is considering the dinner at a friend's house where all the participants share a common trust in the host, and therefore everybody feel comfortable in engaging with each other. This reduce the psychological cost associated with interacting with unfamiliar individuals, and thanks to the presence of the trusted intermediary, well, that alleviates the lack of initial trust. Um, Obviously, this model requires that the trusted third party is trusted above all the other parties. And the third one is the web of trust. And I believe that this is the one that has characterized the World Wide Web. When it started with end-to-end interaction using direct trust, and therefore evolved with the third-party model using X509 PKI, where multiple certificate authorities, also known as trust anchors, are involved and distributed using some sort of centralized registry. Let's think about the role of the CIB forum in that. Let's act like a trusted list of trusted certificate authorities. Therefore, it's a mixed model where we have several landmarks, and we can say that it is pretty decentralized because we have more than a single trust anchor, but at the same time, the CAB forum represents a single trust landmark. And in this slide, I want to introduce the peculiar federation roles: trust anchor, intermediate, and leaf. The trust anchor is the federation authority. It defines the policies, the accreditation rules, anything about the federation configuration. It can also accreditate, register other entities, such as direct leaves or intermediaries. Here we have a representation of this hierarchy. The trust anchor is the root element. Below it, leaves and intermediates. And I believe that this is a very significant point of comparison because, as represented here, OpenID Federation and X509 based PKI share similarities as they use comparable terminology and also enable the same pattern of trust delegation through the transitive property. However, and that's thanks to the chains. In X509, they are called X509 certificate chain. In OpenID Federation, trust chain. In addition to this common set of feature and general behavior, OpenID Federation offers additional flexibility for metadata exchange, policy application, and this make it really different from a traditional PKI system. And since both X509 PKI and OpenID Federation use the same trust model, that's the trusted third party, this slide wants to show the comparison, a more accurate comparison of the X509 PKI and, or differently, of the X509 certificate chains and the OpenID Federation trust chain. The first difference that came up to our eyes are about the data format. X509 uses ASN1, while Federation uses JWT, a well-consolidated data format in web development. And also Federation provides a RESTful API supporting transparency and real-time evaluations. OpenID Federation trust chains do not exclusively carry a single public key, but multiple public keys, and where each key is specialized for different purposes. One of the most important features of OpenID Federation is about the distribution of the metadata. The metadata are distributed within the chain. Therefore, the chain does not offer only cryptographic material, but also the useful data for good interoperability. OpenID Federation therefore aims to address by design the issue of fragmented, well-known endpoints where multiple metadata are provided according to different features or roles. A real-world example of this challenge is about the distribution of the OpenID credential issuer metadata that must be mixed with SDJVC metadata and across different endpoints, different well-known endpoints, and as mandated by IETF and OpenID specification, even though they are complementary to each other. OpenID Federation resolved this fragmentation because it offers a consolidated way to provide more than a single metadata about all the roles and the features that a single entity might have in a context. Let's call it federation. OpenID Federation trust chains can also contain trust marks that are compliance certificates and or verifiable attestation about policies and also about particular compliances, features, behavior about an entity. Trust marks must be defined within each trust frameworks. And also X509, OpenID Federation trust chain can also carry X509 certificates for each published cryptographic key in the form of JW key, according to the IETF RFC that enable the publication of X509 certificate within a single JW key. This makes OpenID Federation pretty flexible in accommodating any need mandated by the trust frameworks. During the previous slides, we got some of the values about the properties that matters for the construction of an infrastructure that scales. And when I say that scales, I mean not only technically, but also administratively across different domains and according to criteria of division of responsibilities and mechanism of delegation. We have the trust anchors, we have the intermediates, we have the leaves, and we are going to see how their freedom are and can be implemented. We got some relevant point about delegation, transitive trust, and how to start implementing OpenID Federation, because I want to jump directly to the point. Every participant must deploy a single well-known endpoint. It is called OpenID Federation, and these resources hosts the entity configuration about an OpenID Federation, a federation participant. And the entity configuration represents the first element of the trust chain. and contains what the entity says about itself, because the entity configuration is a self-issued and self-signed declaration. This freedom to autonomously declare any information about themselves allow all entities to use single entity configuration for different federation or context. An entity participating in a federation in the role of leaf can be also a trust anchor in another federation, and an intermediate in another one, and another intermediate in another one. The entity configuration scales across multiple contexts. The entity configuration is signed with keys contained in the top-level JWKS attribute, the one marked in blue, which proposes exclusively to carry out cryptographic operation for trust evaluation. Therefore, we have the top-level jobs that are only about trust evaluation and cryptography in support of the trust evaluation. Each other cryptographic key specific to a protocol is published within the specific metadata. Therefore, we ensure that different keys are used for different purposes. The metadata parameter is the one marked in green within this JSON. Well, the representation of the entity configuration is a representation of a JWT. Therefore, we have on the top the JWT header divided by a period to the payload. It is obviously represented in plain text to facilitate the reading. The entity configuration can contain various metadata. OpenID Federation is pretty neutral on that. Each metadata has its applicative scopes, and therefore allows a single entity to perform multiple protocols. Well, considering, just to give a concrete example, considering a credential issuer that is simultaneous at the same time is a no-auth authorization server to issue the access token to be used to the credential endpoint, and at the same time is a relying party, because the credential issuer must authenticate also the user through some sort of credential presentation. This is a pretty obvious example of a single entity requiring 3 different protocols and playing 3 different roles within the same federation. And finally, we have trust marks. We will delve into the detail of trust marks soon. And the authority hints. The authority hints signals the list of superior authorities from which it is possible to obtain an attestation to evaluate the validity of this entity configuration. Let's see, because following all the authority hints up to the trust anchor, the trust chain is therefore collected. And in this slide, we have the representation of a trust chain, a simple trust chain without intermediaries, for sake of simplicity. On the left, we have the leaf entity configuration. In the middle, the trust anchor subordinate statement that validates the entity configuration. And at the end of the chain, the trust anchor entity configuration. The bindings that links the statements within the same chain are both attribute based and cryptographically based. Here I have tried to use the colors to exemplify this binding. The subordinate statement contains the JWKS used to cryptographic verify the entity configuration signature. In this example, the leaf claims to play 2 different roles, OpenID relying party and OpenID credential issuer. But as you can see in the subordinate statement, we have some constraints defining the allowed entity types, and therefore the trust anchor, or differently, the superior entities, mandates, forces the leaf to only be evaluated as in the role of OpenID relying party. Therefore, the entity configuration says all about the entity, whatever the context where it will be evaluated, according to the chain and the context and the trust framework, and therefore the federation. Policies upon the metadata are applied and can be, published in real time. This reduces a lot the costs of notification. If you might think, if a signing algorithm became weak, some security vulnerability upon some algorithm or protocols, well, a trust anchor wake up a morning, publishing a policy, disabling the problems within the entire federation without be forced to send thousands of email without no guarantees in the time of resolution of the issues. Also, the trust anchor entity configuration defines which are the trust mark issuers. We will say it soon. And another constraints that says that the chain can only have one or a maximum of one intermediaries between the trust anchor and the leaf. This is very important for growing federation. And these are the endpoints, the most important endpoints, the required endpoints that characterize the RESTful API of OpenID Federation. We have seen the well-known OpenID Federation where the entity configuration is published. And this is the common endpoint for all the participants of the federation, while for federation authorities, therefore, trust anchor intermediaries must at least provide the subordinate list endpoint that provides an array of all the entity IDs of the registered participants, the fetch endpoint where the subordinate statement can be provided about a subject, as explained in the example with the HTTP GET request, and also the historical keys endpoint where all the keys not expired, not used anymore, or revoked must be published for historical cryptographical evaluation of the historical trust chain. Sorry for the joke of words. The point is that the trust anchor registers one or many intermediaries and leaves, and all the intermediaries register one or many other leaves and intermediaries. Therefore, the list of all the participants about a federation is distributed across multiple entities. This is a simple example where I exemplify how an X509 certificate can be provided within Federation Trust Chain. And since Federation Trust Chain is capable to publish more, to carry more than a single public cryptographic key, therefore more than a single X509 certificate can be provided within a single trust chain. And here in this slide, I wanted to explode a single trust mark. It came with an ID. It is a signed JWT. And in this example, for instance, the trust framework defines that this particular ID, trust mark ID, is about a relying party that can interact with underage user. This is a common example we have in Italy according to our implementation. Therefore, the short recap about the trust mark is that they brings available conformance to a national international service profile. they represent stipulation of some sort of out of band agreement between two organizations. It brings verifiable conformance about some specific security profile. According to the work made so far in IDAS, where the implementing acts has introduced the reliant party registration certificates, and that also, since those registration certificates must not necessarily be X509 certificates, they can be also JWS, while OpenID Federation can be used also to issue reliant party registration certificates, and therefore attesting the data that reliant party is allowed to request to an user, reducing therefore the over-asking issue. In this sequence diagram, I want to show you how a wallet is able to discover all the credential issuers, and therefore all the credentials that within a specific federation are available. Therefore, the wallet must fetch the list of all the credential issuer intermediaries using the listing endpoint provided by the trust anchor, and the same for each intermediaries. Once he got all the list of all the credential issuers, by evaluating each entity configuration, therefore by having established the trust cryptographically with each intermediate and with each verifiable credential issuer, and also having applied the policies, the wallet, the holder is sure about all the credentials allowed for issuance within the federation and from each credential issuer. A similar approach is the use case of the credential offer, where a wallet must establish the trust with a specific credential issuer. The discovery starts by fetching the entity configuration and building the trust chain following the authority hints. And once the trust chain is built, it must be validated, the policy applied, and therefore we got the final metadata about the verifiable credential issuer. Similarly, as happened with the X509 certificate chain, also the federation trust chain can be provisioned in a static way. Therefore, using a JWS header parameter, it is called trust underscore chain. Therefore, the discovery process can be used only to evaluate the non-revocation of an entity. And there is also a way that it is called fast renewal that simplifies reduces the amount of HTTP requests, facilitating the implementation. Short recap: flexibility, transparency, dynamic relationship, constraints, offline usage. It scales: single entity configuration, multiple federation, multiple roles, and application agnostic. Using federation, we can create our own metadata profile. Therefore, OpenID Federation can be used also outside of ITF and OpenID Federation. Transparency. Me and my team has developed a tool. It is called OpenID Federation Browser. It is coded in TypeScript, and it allows to navigate the Italian infrastructure of trust. And this is thanks to the real-time API, the Federation API, that allows that. Where else? Using federation, we have HTTPS entity identifiers. I want to talk about this because there is a never-ending conversation about enabling other alternative subject identifiers. Therefore, even if in Federation we mandate the use of HTTPS URL, there are some possibilities to enable also the ID resolution methods as well. Federation address satisfy the security and privacy requirements. We have the delegation and according to the how the trust chain works, therefore the transitive trust implementation. We have policies. It can be also used in offline scenarios, and an historical trust chain can be verifiable even in the future. Therefore, Federation satisfy the requirements of the no repudiation thanks to the historical key registry that it is distributed. We do not have a single central registry with all the historical keys about all the participants. Every participant publish its own historical keys. And it is also protocol agnostic. What does wallet architecture draft? It takes the three-party model, and as shown in this picture, it is not three-party only, because having a trust anchor or a certificate authority of a trust registry, the counts grow up to 4 parties. And it is not limited to that, because it delves more within the wallet architecture and also defines the authentic sources that are database used by credential issuer or resource servers according to the ITF OAuth paradigm that provides data to the credential issuer, enabling them to issue brand new credentials, and also wallet provider that are some sort of authorization services that issues wallet unit attestation and also wallet solution. Therefore, the wallet instance in control of the holder is provided by the wallet provider. And it also defines many kind of wallet types. And I believe that many of you feel comfortable in these definitions. If you see some glitches, or if you want to give your contribution also to this definition, please reach us to the GitHub Federation Wallet draft, open an issue, and we will together working in any further alignments of terminologies and paradigm. And it also defines how the wallet attestation can be linked or is linked to a trust chain about its issuer, the wallet provider, without necessarily be one of the statements contained in the trust chain. And this representation in green represent a pure OpenID Federation trust chain, where the wallet instance in red is outside but linked to its issuer, the wallet provider. And also the trusted list is something out from the pure OpenID Federation trust chain that ends with a single trust anchor, while in a decentralized approach, we might have more than a single trust anchor, and according to the IDAS regulation, a trusted list publishing all the enabled trust anchor within, according to a regulation, trust framework, or ecosystem, in this case, the EIDAS 1. The wallet architecture also defines the metadata roles that are peculiar for the wallet ecosystem. Here we have, together with the traditional federation entity and the OAuth authorization server, already defined in the OpenID Federation core spec, we have the OpenID credential issuer and the OpenID credential verifier. We have also the wallet provider metadata. I want to introduce very briefly some open issues that touches the Federation wallet specs and the OpenID for VC specs. If something might be of your interest, then please join the discussion. OpenID for VCI metadata does not include the JWKS parameter. Therefore, we have the metadata about the OpenID credential issuer, but the JWKS must be found outside of it. We have SD.VC defining its own metadata endpoint, well-known endpoint. Others, protocols like ISO 80013-5 uses X509 certificates. Well, according to the principle implemented in OpenID Federation, this makes an important fragmentation. And using Federation, we really want to reduce this fragmentation, consolidating all about a credential issuer and its cryptographic capabilities within its metadata. Here the link where you can join the discussion. Probably this is an advanced feature that will be covered in future release of the OpenID credential, verifiable credential issuer specification. Another point is sanitizing the endpoints allowed by a relying party to prevent endpoint mix-up attacks. This is why in Italy we have implemented within the OpenID credential verified metadata the request URI and response URIs, and having them in the metadata of the relying party. The superior entities, the federation authorities, are therefore enabled to apply policies and restrict the endpoints used by the relying party. And this prevents that an adversary that is able to steal the cryptographic keys of a relying party may hijack the responses, the presentation to an endpoint under its control. Therefore, these are advanced features that about the security posture of our implementation. And at the end, but not for the end, the issue about enabling subject alternative names in Federation entity configuration is a very important issue. Please join the discussion, bring the claim of your communities and your thought in general. I believe that even if Federation does not implement DID resolution methods, I believe that using its API and with the benefit of its transparency would be great if the Federation entity configuration would be able to hint that that specific entity supports other protocols, other entity IDs, introducing other trust evaluation methods. What else? If you have implemented or if you are looking for some open source implementation about OpenID Federation, this is the official page where all the implementation are published. I have noticed, if this might be of interest of our community in OWF, that the implementation provided by Animo or Anaimo solution in TypeScript is not listed yet in this page. We should reach Mike Jones or the other OpenID Federation board members to signal and explicitly request to include the OWF implementation of OpenID Federation. I'm very happy about that, and for any support needed, please consider my help and support. And I don't know if, I hope that I don't have annoyed you. I don't know if there might be some minutes for further conversation, if you have some questions. I admit that I didn't see if there are hands. Thank you for your attention anyway.
That was awesome. Really good. Thank you so much for that. One question I've got is, does does legal entity come into this in any way? Is there any place where that is considered the binding between a party and a legal entity?
Oh, well, very good question. In federation, we only have organizational entities. A participant in federation cannot be a natural person. The natural person is part of an ecosystem using its wallet unit. But since it is a personal device or a service provided for personal use, the wallet unit is not part of the federation in a way that it must not be registered by a superior entities. The delegation of trust passes through the wallet provider. The wallet provider is an organizational entity. It must be registered. And since we trust the wallet provider, we trust the attestation issued by the wallet provider to the personal devices. Therefore, we are able to interact with a natural person or natural person on behalf of legal person. At the same time, federation enables the born of particular wallet unit driven by a legal person, pure services in cloud with their own intelligences. And if you want to explore more the concept of organizational entities playing the role of wallet unit on behalf of legal person, we can work together to further develop the current definition we have in the wallet specs. Where in the section where we have defined all the different kind of wallet types, if you believe that there might be spaces for that, we can work more on this. If you have some particular use case, I'm really interested in that.
The thing I was wondering about in particular was just the general trust chain that you talked about. So more talking about the issuer and the binding of an issuer with the legal entity that issuer is bound to. Is that concept built in any way, or is that to be layered on top? Is that like fits into the trust mark type idea where it says, oh, here's the registered legal entity that is bound to this relying party, for example, or this issuer of credentials?
Well, it's amazing how you got the federation. Thank you for having brought the trust marks. Yes, we have at least 3 different ways to handle that. Using wallet unit, therefore taking out from the trust chain, or defining a specific role using a specific metadata. And if we use this approach, therefore the legal person got registered and brings its own entity configuration, the use of trust marks is really relevant, because a trust mark might signal also that this is a legal person according to some properties and stuff like that. We do not have any explicit definitions about how a legal person can join in a federation. From my perspective, this is something that should be defined in the trust framework, because the technical specification is something, the trust framework is something else. But I believe that there might be space to introduce some consideration more about relevant use cases about that. I admit that I'm taking time because I'm really interested in how the things will go in the IDAS for the legal person entities. And I don't want to go too much ahead alone. I really would want to wait for the consolidation of the IDAS trust framework, and therefore find a way to get it harmonized. Just to give you an example, I had talked about the Reliant Party registration certificates. This is something that in Italy we have implemented with metadata policy 3 years ago. I have waited for more than 2 years for that. And definitely the German delegation brought the proposal. I can support that. And it seems that time is important.
Yep. Thank you.
I had a quick question. How do we keep up with OID Federation spec changes and updates?
Wow. When I have implemented OpenID Federation, it was at draft number 17. And therefore, I became co-author. I pushed forward the specification up to 22. The Italian implementation was born, and I decided to get it aligned up to the 24. But the number of draft has continued. And in Italy, I have decided to stop working in continuous integration because it costs too much. I'm waiting to the final OpenID Federation specification. Today, we got the draft number 42. And I can tell you that all the breaking changes was about semantics, parameters names, and other improvements about more implementation consideration, I would say. The core principles about how OpenID Federation works remains untouched. However, we do not have today the final standard, but the OpenID Foundation has started a security evaluation. 1 year ago, we got some important security reviews. And in particular, I'm going to disclose something interesting. In particular, a security issue about the automatic client registration, a security issue about the parameter AUD audience that we widely use in the OAuth framework. And I personally realized that it was a security issue not about only just the OpenID Federation, but about the entire ITF OAuth framework. And this is why the RFC 7523 bis was born. I don't know if you have heard about that. At the same time, the OpenID Foundation has started the certification program. And in the day 24 April, there will be an interop test event in Stockholm. I will be there. If you want to join, I can provide you further information. I don't know how the communication in the OpenID Foundation has handled that. The answer to your question is that OpenID Federation is mature because we got security reviews, we got the certification platform, the interop test events. I don't know which will be the final number. I would like to get your attention to some further improvements we are working on in Federation that, as mentioned, does not breaks the way Federation works, but provides additional information for the implementers and improvements in general. according to my perspective, today federation can be used. It can be implemented also even in production stages.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Thank you. And yeah, would love to receive any links about the April 24th Interop event in Stockholm. So yeah, curious to hear how that goes. Thank you. Let's see, it looks like we just have 3 minutes left. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much. This was a super interesting presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time. Join us, everyone, next Monday to hear about the HSM requirement for high assurance credentials for the next presentation next week. So yeah, thanks everyone for participating in the discussion and project updates. Thank you so much, Giuseppe, for the presentation, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Char. Thanks,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, Giuseppe.